No one expected him to speak, least of all her. The room was warm, crowded, and filled with a low hum of polite conversation. Smiles were worn like costumes, careful and practiced. From the outside, it looked like a perfect family gathering. Inside, something was quietly unraveling. Her name was Claire. She stood near the kitchen counter, fingers wrapped around a mug she did not need. She had been married to Daniel for almost 8 years, long enough to know the rhythms of his family, long enough to know where she fit, or where she didn't. Daniel's parents had invited everyone over for Sunday dinner. These dinners happened often. They were supposed to be comforting. But tonight felt different. Claire sensed it the moment she walked in. The air was heavier. The pauses in conversation lasted a second too long. She brushed it off at first. She always did. Daniel kissed her cheek and went to help his father with something in the garage. Claire stayed behind with the others. That was when the comments started. Quiet at first, almost polite. A remark about her job being more of a hobby. A laugh about how she still hadn't figured out real family traditions. Each comment landed softly, but together they formed a weight. Claire smiled through all of it. She always smiled. She had learned early on that pushing back only made things worse, so she nodded. She laughed lightly. She told herself it didn't matter. Across the room, Daniel's brother Mark leaned against the wall. He had arrived late, still wore his jacket. Mark was not loud, not dramatic. He was the kind of man people forgot was there. He watched more than he spoke, listened more than anyone realized. Claire noticed his eyes flick toward her once or twice. She wondered if she was imagining it. Dinner was served. Everyone gathered around the long table. Claire sat between Daniel's aunt and his cousin. Daniel took the seat across from her. For a moment, things settled. Plates clinked. Someone told a story. Then Daniel's mother sighed. It was a small sound, but it carried. She looked at Claire and smiled thinly. "You know," she said, "when Daniel married you, we all thought you'd be different by now." The table went quiet. Not shocked quiet, expectant quiet. Claire felt heat rise to her face. Her throat tightened. Daniel shifted in his chair. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Someone chuckled awkwardly. Someone else stared at their plate. Claire searched for the right response. She didn't find one. She swallowed and said, "I'm happy with who I am." Her voice was calm. Too calm. Daniel's mother tilted her head. "Happiness is nice," she said. "But family standards matter." That word hung in the air. Standards. Claire felt suddenly very small, like a guest who had overstayed her welcome. She glanced at Daniel again. He looked uncomfortable, but still silent. That hurt more than the comment itself. Mark straightened slightly. No one noticed yet. The conversation moved on, but the tone had shifted. The warmth was gone. Claire picked at her food. She barely tasted it. She wondered, not for the first time, if she was imagining the distance, if she was being too sensitive. That thought had kept her quiet for years. Another comment followed, then another. Nothing cruel enough to call out, just enough to sting. Finally, Daniel's aunt leaned closer and whispered something meant only for Claire. "You're lucky to be here," she said softly. "Some women would have tried harder." Claire's hands trembled, just slightly. She looked down at her plate so no one would see. That was when Mark pushed his chair back. The sound was gentle, but it cut through the room. Everyone looked up. Mark cleared his throat. He didn't raise his voice. But when he spoke, the entire table listened. "Can I say something?" he asked. Daniel's mother smiled politely. "Of course, Mark." Claire felt her chest tighten. She didn't know why. Mark looked around the table. Then his eyes settled on Claire. There was no judgment there, no amusement, only steadiness. "I've been listening all night," he said, "and I think something needs to be said out loud." The room grew still. Claire's heart began to race. She had no idea what he was about to do. And for the first time that evening, she felt something shift. Something fragile. Something hopeful. If you're enjoying this story so far, please like the video and subscribe for more heartfelt tales. Mark took a slow breath, and the silence deepened. No one interrupted him. That alone said everything. Mark rested his hands on the back of his chair. He didn't rush. He didn't look angry. That made it harder to ignore him. "I've heard a lot of comments tonight," he said gently, "about expectations, about standards." He paused, letting the words settle. "I've also watched Claire sit here and take them with grace." Claire's breath caught. Her eyes stayed on the table. Daniel's mother shifted slightly. Her smile tightened. Mark continued. "And I'm trying to understand why kindness seems to be the only thing that's not required." A soft murmur moved through the room. Someone cleared their throat. "This family," Mark said, "talks a lot about values, respect, loyalty, support." He glanced at Daniel, then back to the others. "But tonight, I haven't seen much of that directed toward the person who married into this family and chose to stay." Claire felt her chest ache, not from pain this time, from being seen. Daniel's cousin frowned. "Mark, no one means any harm," she said. Mark nodded. "I know. That's the problem." The room went still again. "Harm doesn't always come with raised voices," he said. "Sometimes it comes wrapped in jokes, or advice, or disappointment." Daniel finally spoke. "Mark, maybe this isn't the time." Mark lifted a hand, not sharply, just enough. "This is exactly the time," he said, "because silence has had enough time." Claire's fingers curled into her napkin. She felt tears pressed behind her eyes. She fought them back. Daniel's mother sighed again, this time louder. "I only want what's best for my son," she said. "That's not a crime." Mark met her gaze. "Wanting the best isn't the issue," he said. "Deciding that someone standing right in front of you isn't enough is." A sharp intake of breath rippled across the table. Mark turned slightly toward Claire, still not fully facing her, as if he didn't want to put her on display. "Claire shows up," he said. "She shows up when it's uncomfortable, when it's thankless, when it's clear she's being measured against something no one ever defined." Claire's eyes burned now. She blinked slowly. "She loves my brother," Mark continued, "and she treats this family with more patience than most people would manage." Daniel looked down at his plate. His jaw tightened. Mark's voice softened. "And I need to say this part clearly." He looked at everyone, one by one. "If anyone here thinks she's lucky to be part of this family, you've got it backward." The words landed heavy, final. Daniel's aunt opened her mouth, then closed it. Mark went on. "This family is lucky she hasn't walked away." Claire felt a tear slip free. She wiped it quickly. No one laughed now. No one smiled. The room felt exposed, like something hidden had been dragged into the light. Daniel's mother straightened her posture. Her voice was cool. "Are you implying we've done something wrong?" Mark nodded once. "Yes." A few gasps followed. "I'm saying that if love is conditional," he said, "then it's not love, it's control." Daniel finally looked up. His eyes met Claire's. There was regret there, and fear. Mark stepped back slightly, as if finishing a task. "I didn't plan to say any of this," he admitted, "but watching someone be chipped away at, piece by piece, gets hard to sit through." Claire's shoulders shook. She pressed her lips together. Daniel pushed his chair back halfway, then stopped. The tension was thick enough to feel. Daniel's mother folded her hands. Her voice was quieter now. "We've always welcomed her." Mark tilted his head. Welcoming someone doesn't mean shaping them into who you prefer. Silence followed, long and uncomfortable. Mark finally sat down. No applause, no dramatic reaction, just the weight of truth sitting at the table. Claire stared at her plate, heart racing. She felt exposed, but also strangely lighter. Daniel reached across the table. His hand hovered near hers. She didn't pull away, but she didn't take it either. She needed to breathe, to think. Around them, the family shifted. Conversations didn't restart. Something had changed. There was no pretending otherwise. Claire lifted her eyes slowly. She met Mark's gaze for the first time since he spoke. He gave her a small nod. Not proud, not smug.
Just steady. And in that moment, Claire realized something that unsettled her deeply. Mark had defended her, but Daniel hadn't. That truth pressed into her chest. Quiet. Heavy. The evening wasn't over yet, and neither was the reckoning. No one rushed to fix the silence. It lingered like a held breath. Plates sat half-finished. The food had gone cold. Daniel finally reached for Claire's hand. This time he touched her fingers. She let him, but her grip stayed loose. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. Only she could hear. She nodded once. She wasn't ready to speak. Across the table, Daniel's mother stood and began clearing dishes. Her movements were sharp, too careful. "I think everyone's tired," she said. "That's all this is." No one agreed. No one argued. Mark remained seated, his posture relaxed, but his eyes stayed alert. Claire excused herself and stepped into the hallway. The air there felt cooler, safer. She leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. Her chest rose and fell slowly. She hadn't planned to cry, but the tears came anyway. Years of swallowing words, years of shrinking. All brought to the surface by one voice that finally spoke. Footsteps approached. Soft. Mark stopped a few steps away. He didn't crowd her. "I hope that wasn't too much," he said gently. Claire shook her head. "No. It was needed." He nodded. "I thought so." They stood there quietly. "You didn't have to do that," she added. Her voice wavered.
Mark gave a small, sad smile. Someone should have done it a long time ago. Claire looked at him then. Really looked. "You noticed," she said. Mark shrugged. It's hard not to when someone's trying so hard to belong. Her throat tightened again. "I didn't want to cause problems," she said. "I just wanted peace." Mark sighed softly. Peace that costs you your voice isn't peace. The words stayed with her. From the dining room, voices rose and fell, careful, measured. Daniel appeared at the end of the hallway. He looked unsure. "I've been looking for you," he said. Claire straightened. She wiped her cheeks. "I need a minute," she said, not unkindly. Daniel nodded. He looked at Mark, then back at Claire. "I didn't realize how bad it felt," he said. "I should have spoken up." Mark didn't jump in. He let the moment belong to them. Claire studied Daniel's face, the man she loved, the man who had stayed silent. "I needed you," she said softly. "Not later, not after. In that moment." Daniel swallowed. "I know." Silence stretched again, but this one felt different. "I'm trying to learn," Daniel said. "That doesn't fix anything, but I'm trying." Claire nodded slowly. She believed he meant it, but belief wasn't the same as healing. "I don't know what I need yet," she admitted. I just know I can't keep pretending. Daniel reached for her hand again. This time she squeezed back. Inside the dining room, the family slowly resumed small talk. It sounded forced.
Fragile. Claire took a breath. Let's go back in. Daniel hesitated. Are you sure? She nodded. I don't want to hide. They returned to the table. The room quieted when they entered. Daniel's mother glanced up. Her expression was guarded. Claire met her eyes. Didn't look away. No apology came. Not yet. But something unspoken passed between them. A boundary drawn. Mark caught Claire's eye again and offered a reassuring nod. Dinner wrapped up shortly after. People made excuses. Left early. Hugs were brief. Goodbyes polite. In the car on the way home, the silence felt thick, but not hostile. Daniel spoke first. I don't want you to feel alone anymore. Claire stared out the window. I don't want to be invisible anymore. He nodded. I hear you. At home, they sat on the couch without turning on the lights. I love you, Daniel said. She believed him. That wasn't the issue. I love you too, she replied. But love has to feel safe. Daniel reached for her hand again. She let him hold it. They sat there, quiet, thinking. Somewhere between what had been said and what hadn't, something had shifted. Not broken, but changed. And change, Claire realized, could be frightening or freeing. She didn't know which this would be yet. But one thing was clear. The words spoken at that table would not fade quietly. They would echo. The next few days felt strangely quiet. Not peaceful, just unsettled. Claire moved through her routines on autopilot. Work, errands,
Dinner. But something inside her had shifted, like a door cracked open that could not be closed again. Daniel tried to be attentive. He asked how she was feeling. He listened more. Still, there was a careful distance between them. Not cold, cautious. Midweek, Daniel's mother called. Claire saw his name light up her phone first, then watched him answer. His voice was calm, measured. Yes, he said. I understand. Claire couldn't hear the other side, but she felt the weight of it anyway. When he hung up, he sat beside her. She wants us to come over this weekend, he said. Just the two of us. Claire's stomach tightened. For what? Daniel hesitated. She said she wants to talk. Claire nodded slowly. Part of her wanted to say no. Another part was tired of running. Okay, she said, but I won't sit quietly this time. Daniel met her eyes. I won't ask you to. Saturday came faster than expected. The house looked the same as always. Neatly trimmed lawn, lights glowing softly through the windows. But stepping inside felt different. Daniel's parents were already seated in the living room. Mark stood near the window. He smiled when he saw Claire, a quiet, reassuring presence. I thought I'd stop by, he said. Hope that's all right. No one objected. Daniel's mother gestured for them to sit. Her hands were folded tightly in her lap. I've been thinking, she began, about what was said. The room held its breath. I didn't intend to hurt you, she said to Claire, but intentions don't erase impact. Claire felt her heart pound. She nodded. I've spent years trying to fit, Claire said, thinking if I tried harder, I'd finally be enough. Daniel's mother looked down. I didn't realize you felt that way. Claire spoke calmly, but firmly. I did feel that way, she said, because I was treated that way. Silence followed. Mark remained still, present.
unmoving. Daniel's father cleared his throat. "We come from a certain way of doing things," he said, "but that doesn't excuse making someone feel small." Claire exhaled slowly. Daniel's mother looked up again. Her eyes were glassy. "I don't know how to fix this," she admitted. Claire considered her words carefully. "I'm not asking you to fix me," she said. "I'm asking to be respected as I am." The honesty hung in the air. Daniel reached for Claire's hand. This time it felt steady. "I should have protected you sooner," he said. "That's on me." Claire squeezed his fingers. Acknowledgement mattered. Daniel's mother nodded slowly. "I need to unlearn some things," she said. "I can't promise perfection, but I can promise effort." Claire studied her face, looking for sincerity. She saw it. Careful. Uncomfortable. Real. "I'm willing to try," Claire said, "but boundaries aren't negotiable anymore." Mark smiled faintly. Proud. Quiet. The conversation didn't solve everything, but it opened a door. They left not long after. In the car, Daniel let out a long breath. "That was hard," he said. "Yes," Claire replied, "but necessary." Over the next few weeks, things slowly changed. Small gestures, more thoughtful words. Not perfect, but better. One evening, Daniel's cousin invited them to dinner. Claire hesitated. "Only if we go together," she said. "As a team." Daniel nodded. "Always." At the gathering, the tone felt different, still cautious, but kinder. Then someone made a familiar comment, a subtle one. Claire felt the old tension rise. Before she could speak, Daniel did. "That's not okay," he said calmly. "We don't talk to Claire like that." The room went quiet. Claire turned to him, surprised. He met her gaze, unflinching. Mark, across the room, gave a small, approving nod. Claire felt something warm settle in her chest. This was new. This was growth. But as the evening went on, Claire noticed Daniel's mother watching her closely, thoughtfully. Later, as they were putting on their coats, she stepped closer to Claire. "I want to say something," she said quietly. Claire braced herself. "I see you differently now," she continued. "And I'm not proud it took so long." Claire held her gaze. "Seeing you is a start," Claire said. Daniel's mother nodded, then hesitated. "There's something else," she added. "Something you should know." Claire felt her pulse quicken. "What is it?" she asked. Daniel's mother glanced toward Mark, then back at Claire. And in that moment, Claire sensed that another truth was about to surface, one that might change everything she thought she understood about this family. Claire's breath caught. She hadn't expected another reveal. Daniel's mother gestured toward the empty kitchen. "Let's talk privately," she said. Daniel started to follow. His mother shook her head gently. "This is for Claire." Mark looked between them. Claire gave him a small nod. She could do this. They sat at the kitchen table, just the two of them. The house was quiet. "I need to tell you something I should have said years ago," Daniel's mother began. Her voice trembled. Claire listened. Steady. Open. "When Daniel brought you home for the first time," she said, "I was afraid." Claire frowned slightly. "Afraid of what?" "Of losing him," she admitted. "Of change. Of not being needed the way I was before." She folded her hands. "I convinced myself that if I pushed you to be different, I could hold on to what felt familiar." Claire absorbed the words slowly. "That fear made me unkind," Daniel's mother said, "and I justified it as concern." Claire felt a strange calm wash over her. Not relief. Understanding. "I didn't realize how much power my words carried," she continued, until Mark spoke up. Claire's lips pressed together. "He reminded me of who I used to be," Daniel's mother said softly, "and who I don't want to become." Silence settled between them. Claire finally spoke. I don't want to replace you, she said. I just want space to exist without being judged. Daniel's mother nodded. I see that now. She hesitated. There's one more thing. Claire held her breath. I treated you the way I was treated when I married into this family, she said. I thought enduring it was the price of belonging. Claire's eyes softened. That doesn't make it right, Claire said, but it explains a lot. Daniel's mother looked up, surprised, then grateful. I can't undo the past, she said, but I want to do better going forward. Claire considered her carefully. I'm willing to build something new, Claire said, but it has to be built on honesty. Daniel's mother reached across the table. She stopped halfway, waiting. Claire placed her hand in hers. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a beginning. When they returned to the living room, Daniel stood immediately, concern etched on his face. Claire nodded reassuringly. On the drive home, the night felt lighter, not because everything was fixed, but because everything had been named. Weeks turned into months. Family gatherings became easier, not perfect, but respectful. Daniel spoke up when needed, without hesitation. Mark remained quietly supportive, never overstepping, always present. One afternoon, Claire found herself alone with Mark in the backyard during a barbecue. I never thanked you properly, she said. Mark smiled. You don't owe me anything.
You changed things, she replied. For me. Mark shook his head. You already had the strength, he said. I just gave it room. Claire smiled. She believed him. Later that evening, Daniel wrapped an arm around her shoulders. I'm proud of you, he said. She leaned into him. I'm proud of us. As they watched the sun dip below the horizon, Claire realized something important. Love wasn't proven by silence. It was proven by presence. And sometimes, the bravest voice in the room wasn't the loudest one. It was the one that spoke when it mattered most. Claire no longer felt small at that table. She felt grounded.